welcome back to episode 4 of AI4U. We have with us again the wonderful and inimitable Dr. Jay Tao. He'll be telling us about Health Buddy. We talked last time about Health Buddy, how he built the prototype, the V1, and it had problems. And how today he'll tell us about how he solved those problems, ultimately culminating in how we can all use these new tools and new techniques to build trustworthy AI, and how to decide when we should build kind of a static workflow versus a more dynamic and fully agentic system. So let's go.
So what is the engineer's worst nightmare? It's some mistakes, you realize some catastrophic failures at 3 a.m. and you get a warning. And as a human engineer, me, I have to get up and fix that immediately. That's at least my worst nightmare. But in the new version of Health Buddy, which we have been talking about in these 2 episodes, a failure happened. What's required of me? Nothing. The system heals itself, fixes itself, and just, worst case scenario, just reboot and resume the task. Today we're going to discuss how we move from the inconsistent, brittle version 1 of Health Buddy to this version that can heal and recover from itself.
Jay, that's an amazing claim. Self-healing AI. That last episode, you left us at an ethical crossroads. We needed a brand new architecture that was built for trust. What is the core principle of this new system, a new V2?
I think, resilience is basically the most important thing here. We need to build a system that will actually see what kind of failures it may encounter in the future and how it can recover from these failures. And the failures could come in different forms, could come in the low quality output, or it could come in as a huge, disaster that, it just doesn't work, right? It just throws an error and nothing's generated. So we need to see what's happening from that. So before we're building something like a small team of agents that takes over after each other. Now it's more like a newsroom. We'll have a central editor-in-chief that controls what news are being released, and this editor-in-chief will call different staff member, these agents, to get things done.
And when they fail,
when they fail, the editor-in-chief will basically note this thing failed, and next time call the same staff member to resume on that failed task.
To try it again, basically.
To try it again.
I see. So now if you get an alert, it's a much bigger alert.
Yeah.
The whole system, the editor-in-chief has quit.
Yeah.
The news is blowing up.
Yeah, it's on fire.
Right.
Yeah, so something like that.
Okay.
So, and we also, to make that happen, we actually build an archive of kinds. So the archive contains a few things. It contains what the agents had built, have collected, these successful weekly reports that we can always refer to, but it also collects intermediate outputs. It also collects basically failed tasks.
I see. So they're works in progress.
Work in progress. And then, it will know, the editor-in-chief will know, okay, this process paused here. And, it can resume next time from here.
So the editor-in-chief, before in V1, every time was a brand new start from scratch, build everything, right?
Yeah.
Now the editor-in-chief comes in, he's got a pile in his to-do box, he's expecting there to have been some progress.
Yeah.
And he's trying to figure out how to make it go from there. Is that right?
Exactly.
Okay. So that I can see how that can make the whole system more resilient, right? Because it's anticipating errors. It's assuming that things will be broken. You're starting from some halfway point all the time. That's very reasonable.
Yeah.
But how do you make it smarter?
So that's where we can actually that's targeting the inconsistency problem. We want to bring up the lower bound of the quality of the reports. So one thing we think is, how about some kind of a plan? Because we are on a weekly schedule of doing research, can we create a weekly plan? And if you remember from our last episode, inconsistency is actually pretty relative here. And so does low quality. Because something low quality to an experienced patient, I don't even know if that's the right term, but somebody who's familiar with the condition may not be low quality for somebody who's new with the condition. So, and also, low quality could also mean the user's preference is not in, this particular thing. Maybe they don't really care about the new drugs. Maybe they only care about, maybe they're a primary caregiver. They only care about how do I support my loved one through this process. Or maybe they care about financial support, programs all over the place. So it's basically different personas and different themes in the reports that, that would actually bring up the quality, the lower bound, because all these personas, all these themes will be, merged into one weekly report. So it's more likely the user will find at least a portion of that weekly report useful.
So that makes a lot of sense.
That's our understanding of bringing up the quality.
I see. So it's like for viewers and listeners who are maybe younger, have never seen a newspaper.
Yeah.
But a newspaper has lots of news and has lots of sections.
Yeah.
And so, like when I was a kid, the only thing I would read was the comics, maybe some sports, right?
Yeah.
And that could be the same thing here. It's not that I felt that the rest of the newspaper was wasting my time, but I could clearly go down to the part that interests me.
Yeah.
So I think what you're saying, and I love this analogy with the newsroom and the editor-in-chief, you're creating different stories or different components of the final report that some people might prefer other parts. So the way you're solving, you're not, by adding, but still relatively briefly, you're not reducing the highs, right? The brilliant insights that some people might receive, but you're increasing the lows by providing more possibilities for something interesting, maybe a lifestyle or family support or something else that would be helpful to them. So they get rewarded, the human user. They get an insight that's on a different dimension.
Exactly. And it's less likely that, we'll have a new drug release every day. And we are doing the daily research. So if we don't have these rotating themes and personas, you'll get a lot of repetitive information every day. Then that defeats the purpose of doing this every day. So now we're rotating every day. The agents, the researcher, the reviewer, they're going out to collect different type of information, like you said, sports and comics and things like that. Then every week, the editor-in-chief is putting this together in an organized way. And then, the between weeks, we even rotate a little bit. This week we'll focus more on the treatment side, but also cover other information. But next week, we'll focus more on financial aid.
Makes sense.
So how did we make that happen? Sounds very...
Let me just ask a quick question.
Okay.
So the editor-in-chief, is he too... okay, there's the planner, right? And there's the recoverer from error guy. Is it the same guy?
So that's something I'm going to talk about. So actually, to make this happen, take a step back. To make this happen, we need a planner.
Right.
We need a planner. Somebody to create this plan, somebody to look at all the available personas and all the available themes and look at last week's newspaper, our weekly report, and design, okay, so this coming Monday, we should do something a little bit different, and Tuesday, something different with different personas and themes. That's the planner.
Okay.
Right? And the planner, if you still remember from episode 1, we're talking about plan, review, execution. That's the pattern we're using. We're putting that pattern into life here. Right? We want to create a plan. And back to your question, the planner is part of the editor-in-chief. So the editor-in-chief is not one agent. It's a group of what we call sub-agents that serve different purposes. Remember, these are specific agents. One of the sub-agent is the planner. All it does is creating a plan, a weekly rotating theme and personas and things like that. We also have a sub-agent, a plan reviewer, look at the plan and say, okay, this plan is not diverse enough from last week, right? We need to adjust the plan.
So that review cycle is similar to the other review cycle, right? With just the health, the search and review.
Yeah.
It seems like it's possible that loop never ends.
It's possible that loop ever ends. So that's why, we have hard guardrails and say, after 3 reviews, we'll have to proceed.
I see.
That's similar to your real life journalism, right?
Exactly.
So everybody has a deadline.
Yes.
And at the deadline, doesn't matter. You have to move on. And a little bit, recap on episode 1. We explained why, we want to do the review right after plan, right? Because like you said, the research review cycle, the reviewer is actually working on a much higher demanding task. He has to read the whole report. But in the planning cycle, it just needs to look at these topics and things like that and make a decision. Oh, this topic is not good enough. It's not we're not saying we're getting rid of the review of the research.
No, right.
We're just adding another layer of review.
That's right.
To make sure the quality is better.
That makes a lot of sense. Now, speaking of quality, so the overeager, overconfident intern problem. One of the major problems there is the lack of reliability. Now, you promised us you'll tell us about trust, and we trusted you to do that. So how did you solve a core trust problem?
So I think one thing that's very important to us is basically we need to look into how these agents approach these problems. What is the reasoning? I hate to use the word thinking because I think their thinking is different from human thinking. So the reasoning process behind, if we give it a task, what it do?
Which specific agents are you thinking about?
For example, research.
Okay.
Right? For example, research. So if we look at this, how does it do research? And how does it, what kind of information should be extracted? They're very good at that, but you have to give it detailed instructions. So the first thing, we're using is more like the ISO, 9000, quality standard, where we actually putting a standard to regulate how these agents think, reason, in essence. You can only use these things. You should only do these things when you look at, say, a web page. You should look for these information, for example, key statistics about survival rate, about side effects, and about the FDA approval status, and things like that. So that's basically something we care about and we control over there. So
does that, sorry, if you regulate the way the agent reasons, there are some benefits. We can see that.
Yeah.
Are there so it could fail to reason something that it would have been able to otherwise?
That's exactly the first problem we faced, is we made those guardrails, these regulations too harsh. So remember, we keep saying agents is about their autonomy. You're making the guardrails too harsh. They don't have the wiggle room. You're taking away the autonomy. So, at a certain point, we even, I even question myself, why do I need an agent here? Because everything is deterministic now.
Oh, right.
Right? So I don't need agents. I'm taking everything it can make decision on away from the agent. So it doesn't make any sense. So then we dial it back. We still want to use the brilliance of the intern, but now we need more control. Meaning we have rules. We have deterministic rules saying when the intern says something like this, we'll say, okay, this doesn't really work, and things like that.
That's really interesting. Is there the image I'm getting is that it's like a dial, right?
Yeah.
And you're trying to find the sweet spot where it's not too rigid and it's not too crazy, right? But that seems very brittle, very fragile to try to find that one little area in the middle. Is there a way to solve both problems? Can you have like another agent that reviews another loop?
Of course, we can add as many agents as we want, but still remember compute.
Yeah.
To keep this as a free tool, we need to save in compute, right?
Yeah.
We cannot do too much. So we did find a nice balance between this is we keep the prompt as encouraging as we can. Then we use hard-coded rules after effect. If the
On the output?
on the output, when the agents did output something that's not well regulated, we just silence basically suppress it.
Sorry. So let's say it comes back and says something crazy like this disease is incurable.
Yeah.
And you should look for ways to, do the unthinkable. Presumably your guardrail would then catch. The guardrail is not an agent, right?
It's not an agent.
It's just a pure LLM prompt.
It's not even prompt.
Oh, what is it then?
It's hard-coded rules that we're looking for.
Like text keywords or what?
Keywords, logic.
But the logic would be used through an LLM to see if it's using the logic, right? Or no?
Not essentially. We have keywords. We have linguistic rules that we're looking for.
I'm not sure I understand. So suppose it says you should think about doing something crazy. What is the code that says, okay, let's not do that?
So basically, we have a list of monitor language, not just keywords, monitor language through linguistic rules and pattern recognition.
Okay.
So if the output fits any of these patterns, it will be suppressed.
Okay.
So the user will never see them.
And the patterns, like what is the tool that is checking those patterns? I would have assumed it would have just been a simple LLM prompt, like check for these patterns.
Sure, we can use an LLM. Problem is you're introducing another problem.
That's
What
right.
if this LLM,
That's right.
generates something, hazardous or that you don't want people to see. That's a problem. So just simple code would solve the problem. Just linguistic patterns.
I see.
Yeah.
And was that partially inspired by your research on the suicide that you found the patterns there?
Yeah, and there are certain patterns that's obvious. So we actually incorporated some of these patterns and keywords, and basically warning signs. That's back to last episode we're talking about. There are certain smart tools, there are certain dumb tools. This is clearly a situation we can use a dumb tool, a non-LLM tool that will, serve as a guardrail. And remember, this is one part of a guardrail. We also have LLM reviews, filtering these generated contents,
Right.
and look for, warning signs.
And this guardrail, if it triggers it, the whole thing is axed or it deletes that portion?
So basically, certain part of the output will be suppressed. But of course, it's depending on how severe it is. It could end up with the whole daily research is crossed.
I see. Okay, so the trust layer has some LLM-ish components and some very dumb, not dumb, but very strict guardrails.
Yeah.
I see. And then how does it fix itself?
So the self-healing part is very interesting because, now we have an archive. We know what's the last step it took. We can do the same thing every IT help desk told you to do, turn it off and on again. So basically, we're rebooting that particular, not the whole system, but that particular process. Say the daily research, it got stuck. We're just rebooting that, but we're not rebooting from the very top. We're rebooting it we are basically re-rolling to the last successful state, and ask the agent to carry on from that point. So that's the recovery part. And it doesn't solve all the problems. It solves some of the problems. For example, we did realize, at one point that we get continuous problem the system cannot recover from, and it's because our prompt gets too big. And every of these models, they have, at least cloud-based models, they have limitations of how many requests you can send per minute and things like that. We keep hitting that. So then we did two things. A is we actually make the prompt smaller, right? And B is actually we inserted sleeping seconds into these tasks.
Yeah.
Okay. After the researcher did the research, sleep for 30 seconds before you send another request.
That's hard coded. That's not. There's no planner like let me try to think about how to.
There is actually a planner for that.
Oh, really?
First it's hard coded. Then we have a planner when the planner see that specific error LLM is telling you to cool off.
Oh, nice.
It's actually saying, okay, I'm gonna take 17 seconds cool down.
Like an exponentially growing.
Exactly.
Right off. Yeah.
Exactly.
Amazing. That's so cool.
Yeah.
Okay. So you have the new architecture, V2. Again, this is AI assisted, correct?
Yes.
You're not chiseling code.
No, not anymore.
Okay.
Not anymore.
You've built this new trust layer. What did you actually get at the end? What was the tangible result of V2?
So this time, similar to last time, we actually recruited more test users from, and we asked them to subscribe to V2. And then we regularly check with them and see how they feel. Then we see much more positive feedback from them. And they see a lot of, useful things rather than, last time, it's occasionally something useful. A lot of times, it's something they already knew. Now, we have people saying, I need to tell my doctor about this tomorrow. I need to call him tomorrow. That's really encouraging to us. And we even ask these test users how different, if they participate in both rounds, how different are the results. And I think we did get the feedback that the different personas helped, because a lot of times in the first round they feel like that this is something they already knew, right? This belonged to somebody who's a newbie, right? But now not anymore, because we have tailored things for them as well. And even they only care about new treatment, they can find that new treatment section. They only care about financial aid, they can find that particular section. So this is more tailored. That's one thing. And because of that, we're bringing up the lower bound. We're getting the information is less repetitive. And sometimes, in V1, because we cannot recover from the errors, we're missing a lot of information. For example, the whole daily research is crashed, right? So you're not getting anything from there. So we're fixing a lot of those things. So it did bring up, the quality significantly.
So let me ask you just timeline-wise. So you have the idea. It took you about a week to do V1.
Yeah.
Then you iterated, you had feedback from beta testers for like a month or so, or two or something?
Yeah, about 2 months.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then you started building V2.
Yeah.
How long did it take to build V2?
Well, V2 is actually much longer than V1 because, and that's something, I want to talk a little bit about. With AI-assisted coding, I think, you spend a lot of time not actually in coding, but in planning. Mm-hmm. I realized, in V1, I didn't spend too much time planning because I didn't know. Back then, I didn't know how to collaborate with an AI. And V2, I realized I think I spent 6 weeks developing the whole thing. But I spent the first 4 weeks just doing planning architecting. So I spent a lot of time planning. It did take much longer because it's a much bigger system right now, with the self-healing, with the whole. You can think of this as a newsroom. You can also think of this as an assembly line, and the task is going along the assembly line. Agents choose to grab that task or not grab that task, and after it's finished, they put it back. So that's a much more complicated system than V1 is just one single code file. Right now, I have to have servers that enable that stable assembly line. Enable, you can take it off and put it back on and keep it always running. And I think it's another very important thing, and it's my personal suggestion to anybody who wants to build an agentic system, is observability is the key. Not that you want to monitor the system's health 24/7, that defeats the purpose. But when something happened, you want to go back and see what caused the problem.
That's the archive.
That's part of the archive. That's part of the archive. So the archive shouldn't just store the artifacts. It should also store some kind of a log. It's very similar to your system log of sorts. And you'll find, okay, the starting point is this critical error, but tracing back, you can look for the triggers of that error. That's how, that's particularly useful if self-healing cannot solve the problem and the human user do have to step in. And that's nothing new. We, IT people have been doing this for decades, right? So why don't we do this with AI? So I want to see, I would like to see, more observability. It's not just function. It's not just something you deliver, but you also have a company, observability module or system going on with every agentic system that's being built.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. What a journey. So what is this current status of Health Buddy? When will it be released to the public?
So currently we're doing some final testing and tweaking and things like that. Hopefully, within this year, we'll release this to the public. Of course, part of that, is like any system will do some stress testing. We haven't handled, more than maybe 20 users at a time. We'll need to make sure we can handle that. But it's our mission to deliver to the public for free. And, it's my personal mission to build more things like this to help people.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Let's okay. On a technical note now, not so much technical, but in terms of architecture, you asked a question back in, I think, in episode 2, and maybe you can help with your experience now with building Health Buddy V1, V2, answer this question. When should we use a simple workflow, and when do we need a truly agentic system?
That's a great question. So now, a big review here. Health Buddy V1 is a workflow. It's just agents doing things in sequence. The sequence is predetermined. And by our definition of workflows, that's a workflow, right? They don't really have a lot of autonomy here. But V2 is a true, fully, not fully autonomous, but more autonomous agentic system, because now the agent decide when to call which agent to come into the play and what's the order, what's the task, particularly if you're recovering from error, it has more autonomy. So that's what we are implying here. And I believe the order I took is still correct. I designed V1, I started with a workflow. And then I carry on to build an agentic system when I discovered a workflow is not enough for my task. Because the whole reason is workflow is cheaper to design, because it took me a week comparing to 6 weeks of full agentic system, right? If a workflow can get things done. And particularly in the scenario I'm dealing with, as a consultant, I would say 90% of the scenarios, you don't need a full agentic system. Because think about this, every company has their own procedure, workflow of things. You're just automating that workflow. You're not reinventing the wheel.
Makes
It's already there. It's been working for decades. Why would you change that? Right? You can elevate that, but still the fundamentals don't change. So most of the time you don't need to change. And sometimes you do find something broken, right? And this it is a workflow, we have been working along that, but it's hindering us from moving to the next level. That's where you might need an agentic system. You may need an agent to come in and make decisions for you or help you make those decisions. That's one of the things.
That makes sense. Okay.
And the second thing I think is let's talk about cost. We just talked about the development cost, but now let's talk about the cost to fix problems. The cost to fix problems. If you think the cost to fix problem is high, you might want to use an agent. It sounds pretty counterintuitive, because when you put in an agent, how does that help with the cost to fix? My understanding here is, we want something reliable.
Yeah.
We want something reliable. We want something that can recover from errors and mistakes and failures. And agentic system actually have that possibility. Not saying, workflows don't, but because they are more rigid, starting from the middle usually is hard. But with an agentic system, because the assembly line stopped at some point. You just have to restart the assembly line. The agents will start picking things off the assembly line again. But with the workflow, because of the fixed steps, you cannot say, I'm going to start with step 2 in the middle. That's harder. So when we talk about fixed problem, is not actually fixing the errors, and more fixing the failures, of the stop of the process and things like that.
Okay. So if the recovery cost is high,
Recovery cost is a matter. Yeah.
then you want at least consider agents.
Yes. And I think, the other thing is, how variable is your end product?
Oh, variable?
Yeah.
So
basically, if your product is unified, you always need this. It's a summary report of the quarterly sales. It doesn't really vary that much, right? Then a workflow would work.
Okay.
But in this case, think about our use case. I think we have a total of 4 personas and 5 teams. That's 20 different research lanes for the researcher to go through. And this way, we need to give the research agent more wiggling room, so you can actually have enough room because these different lanes will require different strategies and even the prompts. And then, like you mentioned in last episode, now we're putting that conditionals back into the agent's hand and say, if you are doing this research for experienced patients on, I don't know, financial aid, then here is some detailed instructions. So finally the prompts get much bigger. So in order to do that, you need to give it enough autonomy to actually go through this and make that decision within its own reasoning. And this part of the prompt actually works. It is, less hard-coded, meaning less control. But, sometimes you have to, take that trade-off between, control versus creativity.
I see. So the more variability, then you need probably more agents. So especially in health, because your different demographics, right?
Yeah.
Age or gender, whatever other things, that creates different variability, right?
Yeah.
We have a lot of leaders listening to this podcast and to your insights and wisdom. If they're ready to move from these lessons learned to actually architecting their own system, what's the first step?
So we've been giving out free tools, along the way for every episode. So we're gonna give you the final tool in this season, right? And it's called an agentic system design canvas.
Ooh la la.
So basically, this particular tool will help you start from making a decision: should you go with an agentic workflow, or should you go with a full agent system? And if it's an agentic workflow, what are the steps? What are the questions you should ask yourself? So it's a design canvas. It's like you become an artist, right? So we're just helping you laying out the path you move forward. Because again, back to things we have been talking about since episode 2, we keep saying 2025 is the year of agents. I'm sure you guys are all eager to get into this field, right? We keep saying, when do you want AI now, right? When do you want agents now? But I'm sure you need a lot of help to do this. So here is, the point of doing these few episodes, this mini series, this season, is to share our experience with you, to help you look into what is actually agents. Do I really need agents? Because, based on my experience, like I said, 90% of the time, you don't really need an agent. You need agentic workflow. You need automated workflow, automated process. You don't need really a full-blown agent system. And trust me, a lot of people, when they are selling you, are not agents, right? They're just, say, wrapper of ChatGPT.
Yeah.
Right? So we don't function that way. We're not selling you stuff, right? We want to tell you our understanding of the thing so you can get to know what you are actually dealing with, what you actually need here to actually, because at the end of the day, what we want is you elevate your business, elevate your performance. That's the key. So that's why we're giving you this blueprint, basically a design canvas. Will show you the whole how we design our AI team and how should you design your AI team and their responsibilities, and how do you develop. The key thing is your trust layer, so you don't have to worry about that. Again, like always, this will be free to download in the comments at our website, so you can use it to guide your agentic endeavor.
Amazing. So many free things.
Yeah.
That's and this is all from the AI and Tech Institute, where your motto is AI for the greater good.
Exactly.
So this is really good for us.
Yeah.
But tell us, so AI4U, how has AI changed you? How's the process of building Health Buddy V1, V2? How has that helped you, Dr. J. Tao?
I think I want to say it changed me fundamentally. Like I said, before I started working on this, I took pride in, I chisel in, I write my own code with my own hands. And I'm sure a lot of developers still think that way. I'm not saying that's wrong, but think about the alternative. If you actually follow these scientific approach we have been talking about in this season, because a lot of the hesitation come from, I'm not happy with the outcome. Mm-hmm. I don't think the quality of the code AI generated is good enough. But look at what we are doing here. If you're enjoying this podcast, and soon enough, if you're enjoying Health Buddy, that's living proof of this thing actually works. Mm. So that changed me fundamentally. I'll give you a fact. Like I said, I used to spend at least a few hours coding by hand every day, but at best I generate, I don't know, thousands of lines of code every week. Right? Now, just the past week, I generated 100,000 lines of code, right? That's 100 times, faster, right? And not that I'm using all of them, but at least think about efficiency. That's the key here. We're busy with a lot of things. We don't have, I'm not a full-time dev, but, now at least I can start building things. And particularly for these people, who have business ideas, right? You don't have to, like we said, it's okay to go with vibe coding. It's also okay to start, playing with it and build your demo or your MVP, and start there, right? And maybe, it's like I said, it's a golden age of creation. And this also give me some idea, HealthBuddy also give me some idea of my academic research. So I think one thing that I've been working on and is recently published is how do we actually regulate the reasoning of agents? Through what? Right? Clearly, we already know prompts, their advice, their suggestions, they're not strong enough. So is there a strong enough tool that's, like we discussed in last episode, that's stronger than prompts, but not as rigid as hard-coded rules? Mm-hmm. Is there something in between? So I believe I did find something in between that's actually the best of both worlds, that exists in prompts, but it's taking inspiration from hard-coded rules.
Laser.
And they do, at least through our initial experiments, it does work to regulate the reasoning of the agents. And the next thing I realized through HealthBuddy is think about what HealthBuddy does. Think about what I designed HealthBuddy for. I designed to empower human, not to replace us. I think that's a big argument we have here is AI here to take over, right? I don't know. I mean, everybody's thinking about the Matrix. Everybody's thinking about Terminator, Skynet, right? Mm-hmm. But I don't know if that's really something we should be worried about for a long time. Eventually, maybe we do have to worry about that. But I think right now, why don't we let AI to empower us to do more? Think about this. I spend hours, 4 or 5 hours every day to do the medical research. Mm-hmm. Now I just need to spend 5 minutes every morning, every Monday morning, to look at this. And if I'm interested, of course, I can dig deeper, and HealthBuddy will give you hints to dig deeper into things. For example, talk to your doctor. And then don't you agree that's empowering us? Because I saved a lot of time, so you can do more valuable time for you, because that's your expertise and things like that. So I think it's a mentality change. It's basically we should use more AI to let us to do more, to do better, to not only elevate the business performance, but also elevating ourselves.
Amazing. Very inspirational. This has been wonderful. There's been a great blueprint for trustworthy AI, which has been a big issue. I guess let's leave off with speculation. What do you think is the next frontier? What's the problem that even this amazing architecture can't quite solve yet?
Well, that is the billion-dollar question, right? I'm sure everybody's working on that. But one of the things we have been thinking is basically how can we bring the agents and specifically the autonomy to the next level? Now we still have, these agents are predefined by us, the prompts and tools. Can we, even let loose even a bit further? Can we let it change its own prompts? Can we let it spin off new agents, as its own tool? Mm-hmm. Can we bring that to the next level? Because the true discovery coming from that is the next big thing. That's the next mountain. And I promise you we'll climb that mountain together in the next series of this podcast. So please stay tuned.
Wow, 2026 is going to be awesome.
Yes.
Thank you, Jay.
Thank you.